All right. I think we're streaming live now. Just trying to figure this out as I'm going through another application to pull this off. So let's see here. Let's make sure it's going to pop up and that it's not making noise on my end. So bear with me just 1 second if you guys are jumping on or watching this. If you're watching the replay, just be forewarned, skip ahead a couple of minutes. I want to give people an opportunity to jump on here to be able to watch this. I'm going to share this onto my page. And then we will get rocking. Cool. All right. Sweet. Let's see here if I can come back here. I should have a window that allows me to be able to see view stream on Facebook. There we go. Perfect. So I'm going to come on here so I can see the comments and everything else as they're coming through. This is pretty slick. All right. Got a bunch of people on already. Fantastic. Sweet. Let me click on this and then mute it because you'll hear me for just a second. There we go. Now I can see the comments coming in. Hey, Bev, Eric, Cindy, Chris, Scott, Q, sorry. Melinda, Chris, sweet. We're filling it up. Welcome. Welcome. I'm super excited to be on here. This is way exciting on so many levels for me. I've been teaching power sessions on every week for a few hundred people for more than 3 years. Those few hundred people are members of our Habit Finder Academy. And before that, just members of our power sessions and as it's evolved over the years. Hey, Miriam. Hey, Pam. Good to see you guys. D, hello. I look all high tech. I'm trying to pretend like I know what I'm doing. So without further ado, though, I do need to get this out of the way because this is something that people expect, and that is that we're live. So super excited to be on here today, watching my own delay on the video just so I can make sure I keep up on the comments and everything else. So again, just real quick, these power sessions have been going on every Tuesday. We spend 30, 45 minutes, an hour together talking about things that I feel will incrementally move you forward. These have been exclusively for clients up to this point. These are clients that we've worked with one-on-one, that we've worked with in groups, or that join the Habit Finder Academy directly. It's been a major investment in the past to be a part of this. And now we've decided, as we were closing out 2018, that we wanted this to be available to our entire community. We wanted this to be available to anyone who is looking to make a bigger impact in this world, to find the next level of their life, to be able to create more. Because there is plenty that I can share on these sessions that will make an impact for people, whether they work with us or not. But we also know that making a broader impact on our community, on our family, on our followers, on our database, and on all of you, wherever you fall into those categories, is the right thing to do. And that those of you looking to take it to the next level will naturally do so. So this is our representation, our putting our money where our mouth is in terms of abundance. Because I'm not going to hold back out here. I'm going to give you the things that have actually moved our clients forward, that have created the success that our reputation has been founded on as the official Mandino company and as the Habit Finder Institute. Now, a little bit of preface, and then we're going to dive right in because I want to make sure I'm honoring all those who have been accustomed to being on these power sessions every Tuesday at this time with me, to be able to dive right in and really get into the teeth of the material, okay? Now, as far as that's concerned, as you're jumping on here, I'm seeing a lot of familiar names and a lot of familiar faces from the Habit Finder Academy who have been on my power sessions with me for a few years, some of you for a few months. Please, one of the coolest things about being on this platform is you can share this out. So hopefully we're sharing this out like crazy, because up to this week, today, this has been a paid experience. This has been something that people have had to make major investments in to be a part of. And now I'm not changing anything. I want them to be just as interactive, just as transformational, just as powerful, except now we're on a universal platform that doesn't restrict the kind of impact and influence that we can all create as like-minded creators. as intentional creators. That's really what we're talking about. And at the core, at the root of intentional creation, I know a lot of you have words for the year, and I've heard from a lot of people that intentional has been a word that people have really grabbed onto this year and even last year. And because it's a core of the direction and the awareness that we have for where we want to go in our life. So intentional is really important. But at the core of all that, if we were to start going upstream and start considering the things that are impacting our intentionality, are impacting our productivity, impacting our peace, our clarity, our prosperity, our success. I mean, I could come up with 100 different words. And we keep going upstream, we're going to run into behavior. We're going to run into the things that we do, what we don't do, what we should do, what we shouldn't do, what we're supposed to do. And that's an interesting playground. There's a lot of tools and there's a lot of people that play in that area. And so what we want to do is understand, though, that the rate of attrition in that space is really challenging. I was actually just at the gym this morning, and someone was asking me about a certain guru's productivity journal, who I'm a fan of this person. I think they're great, and I think the journal's fantastic in principle. But the average amount of time that somebody uses one of these productivity journals, and he sells thousands, tens of thousands of them every year, is usually about 2 weeks, a week and a half to 2 weeks. Someone will use a productivity journal. The people that are naturally drawn to them are usually entrepreneurs, which is going to be the core competency of what we talk about in these power sessions. Now, if you're not an entrepreneur, don't run away, okay? You don't need to go find something else, because more than likely, if you were drawn here because you've heard me speak, or you've heard my father speak, or you've taken our assessment, or whatever the case is, more than likely, you're entrepreneurially minded. So it doesn't matter that you're not an entrepreneur by vocation, but being entrepreneurially minded, a lot of what we talk about on here is going to be really important. And again, as you're jumping on, I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces who are part of groups we're coaching in, good friends, networks, and of course, my insiders, the members of the Habit Finder Academy who are transitioning in this. Please share this out. That's one of the biggest reasons we're on this platform, is to make sure that this can be abundant, that this can be shared out to our tribes and our networks and our influences for the power that it can provide. So we're going through and we're going upstream, and we run into behavior. We could focus on behavior in 2019. What should we do in 2019? What should we not do? What are we supposed to do? But that's where we run into challenges, like the productivity journal only spending a week and a half on something new, because we're not human doings, as I'm sure you've heard before. We're human beings. So we need to go further upstream to get into the being part, which is really where success and abundance are created. And so then we run into emotions, and we can consider the emotional challenges, the emotional controls, the emotional awareness of our daily lives and of what we're experiencing. So now we've gone from behavior to emotions. We've gone and transcended a little bit higher into the way we operate, okay, and the way we work. So that's not bad. Emotions are where we're going to work with personality. There's a lot of assessments that we can do for behavior, for what your competencies are, what your strengths are, and then we can go and take assessments around our emotions, which are going to be our personalities. I love what Dr. Joe Dispenza said when he said that our personality is simply the emotions that we've memorized. And psychologically, they say we typically have 7 to 9 different personalities on average, as far as aggregate trends, which is just fancy for saying the most common aspects or elements that show up that define our personality. And there's a lot of great tests out there that can give you letters and colors and animals to help you describe what's going on emotionally in terms of the trending elements of that. But there's still another level in terms of getting to the source and transcending to the most effective, longest lasting, and best place you can focus in 2019. So we go from behavior, which is the most difficult to deal with, the most unsustainable, is just focus on what we do without understanding why or the feelings or the emotions behind it. And so we go up to emotions, where we understand our personalities and our tendencies there, drawn to our emotions and our unconscious mind. And then we go right above that and we run into our thoughts. Not just our thoughts, but specifically, you'll hear me reference this constantly, our habits of thinking. What are the trends? What's the modus operandi of our thoughts? We all know we have thoughts. In fact, we have about 80 to 90,000 thoughts a day. And that's on a conscious level. Okay, depending on how active your mind is, could be anywhere from 50 to 90,000 thoughts a day consciously. Unconsciously, we have a few million. Hey, Terry, long time no see. So I'm going to do my best to do very little of that, though, because I want this to be very instructional and I want this to be very coach-like. So love everybody saying, hey, I'll get back to you in the comments after the session. This is also a interactive session. So please, if I'm saying anything and you need clarification, or you're experiencing something in your life or business right now that this resonates with and you'd like more clarity, or you have a question that you think I could expound on to help you as a coach, that's where you want to throw it in the chat. Nothing's off limits. So please. All right. So back to what we were talking about. We've got our habits of thinking. So we've got our thoughts. We've got our 50 to 90,000 conscious thoughts a day, and then our few million unconscious thoughts. That's a pretty challenging ratio. We're aware of about one in, I have no idea what that would be, 1 in 0.5% of them. Okay. 1 in 0.6% of our thoughts we're aware of. Okay. So we've got this undercurrent. We've got this riptide, if you will. I was just in Encinitas over the holiday. Yes, I was out in the waves playing in the ocean at the end of December. It was about 60 degrees outside, and the Pacific was even colder than that. But if I see waves, I can't stay on the beach. It doesn't matter. I've got to be out there. But my daughter was boogie boarding and got caught in a riptide. And I had to go over and get her and pull her back into shore, because fortunately I could swim down and hit the ground and push forward, because just swimming against it would have been futile. But riptides are really scary because you don't feel them when you're in them. They're not like a rushing current, like stepping into a river. They're an under the surface influence, and you don't notice them until you try and swim against them. Again, you don't notice them until you try and swim against them. And also, similar to how many thoughts we have, they're also tough because you don't have a lot of direct reference points when you're out in the ocean. I mean, how many times, for those of you who've been to the beach, have run out and played in the waves and then all of a sudden turned back around and you had no idea where your family was sitting and where your beach towels were and stuff, because you had drifted to one way or the other, even though you thought you kind of had your bearings. It's very similar to what we're working with when it comes to our habits of thinking. There are several that we're aware of. There's several that we're connected to, that we are aligned with. Those are the habits of thinking that are supporting us. But there are also, I haven't seen a perfect one yet in terms of our assessment that measures these habits of thinking as accurately as a X-ray can take a picture of your bones, and an MRI can track your brain's activity. An EKG can measure your heart. The habit finder profile, scientifically and objectively, most objective assessment science I'm aware of on the planet, measures over 6 quadrillion variables in how you think, which is as far upstream as we can get. Let me simplify. Most people spent 2018 working on their behaviors. Short-lived, frustrating, constantly feeling like a hamster wheel and starting from square one. The next level of people went a little deeper into their emotions and their personalities and their tendencies. But not a lot of people were willing to, because it's not as obvious, it's not as stimulating, and it's not as, you can't manipulate it whatsoever, was as far upstream as you can go into your habits of thinking. Not just the thoughts you have, but what is that riptide? What's that current under the surface that it's creating? That's what we want to dive into. You jump on these power sessions every Tuesday with me, just like right now. And I'm going to be challenging you to move beyond your behaviors. Not that we ignore our behaviors, okay? I love what Helen Irwin talks about, that our actions create results and our results don't lie, period. Our results don't lie. A beautiful statement. But she also goes on to say that our results are a direct indicator of our level of awareness. Again, our results are a direct indicator of our level of awareness. Where do we increase our level of awareness? At the source. Because we're still in the middleman if we're just focusing on our awareness of our emotions and our personality. Just like behaviors, we don't ignore those either, but we want to get as far up to the top as we can to be able to measure our habits of thinking. Okay? All right. Brenda Lee says, you don't have the algorithms to figure out my brain and help with my habits of thinking. Don't worry, you're not the first person that's been concerned about the craziness between the ears. I can totally relate. I don't, okay? I don't have the algorithms. Dr. Robert Hartman created those algorithms 60, 70 years ago. An incredible mathematician and philosopher who created the mathematics, the formal science of axiological mathematics, that is the objective and completely accurate algorithm, not for what you're thinking. Don't worry, Brenda Lee. The habit finder doesn't tell me what you're thinking. It just tells me how you're thinking. And working from there allows us to go all the way upstream and focus on what are the principles, what are the practices, what are the processes that can allow us to do like what Helen Irwin was talking about, to increase our awareness at that level, at the source, so that it can trickle down into our awareness and our activity and our control of our emotions and our personality, rather than being defined by that, actually learn and transform from it, and then eventually having it trickle down into our behavior. Most people are going the opposite direction because we're taught to do so, okay? We're taught to do, Miriam Khan's very observant in terms of the number of tabs I have open. That must be showing on my screen. Anyway, with that said, so when you're going up here to our habits of thinking, okay, most people, because we're taught this way as consumers, we're taught to focus on our behavior and what we should do so that we can feel a certain way. And then eventually we'll become who we always wanted to become. Because if I can just do this, then I'll finally feel this, and I'll finally be the person that I wanted to be, which is backwards. And that's just not something we're willing to stand for anymore. It's just not something we're willing to accept. We want to drive this so much deeper, so much more impactfully. Okay, so that's what we're going to focus on in these power sessions. Every Tuesday, it's going to be under the premise of focusing on your thinking habits, the decisions you make from that awareness, and the actions and results that creates. It's simple. That's it. All you need to remember is when you're coming onto these power sessions, when you take a habit finder profile, when you work with us, we're going to focus on your thinking habits and that level of awareness. We're going to focus on the decisions you make from that level of awareness and the actions and results that creates. That is a proven system that we've used with hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs and leaders and executives in major companies. We've been doing this for now, this is the 19th anniversary of our company. 19 years, we've been doing this on this level, continuing to challenge the status quo of personal development to make sure that it's not this fluffy philosophical game, but it's something concrete that actually moves things forward, okay? I think Jeff's spot on as I think about it. Jeff just said, unless she's talking about the tabs going on in your brain, which is totally clear. And you guys all have permission. In fact, that'll be our safe word. Okay. That'll be our safe word, is if I'm rattling off on a tangent and I'm losing people, okay, like I'm flying down and you're hanging on by your fingernails and I'm whipping around corners and stuff, philosophically speaking or mentally speaking, your safe word is tabs, okay? Just chat tabs, and I will take that as a cue to stop, take a deep breath, and make sure that I'm not losing too many people along the way. Because there's something I'm focused on in 2019. It's simplification. It's really making things simpler and building from there, okay? And I apologize for those of you who watch people's eyes in these, and you can see me glancing down every bit, but I want to keep an eye on the chat for people that have questions and ways that I can apply this to your life specifically. So now that 20 minutes isn't something you're going to run into every time you jump on one of these power sessions. Normally it's going to be a few minute introduction, see how everybody's doing, check in. Sometimes I'll just jump on here and say, hey, who needs a coach today? And if you say me, then I'll send you the link to jump on the Zoom here with me so we can actually interact and talk. You can get on video or just on audio. So lots of great things we'll be doing on here, okay? But exactly, safe word is tabs. For when I start layering too much and going too deep and using big words that I compensate, trying to make myself sound more intelligent than I am. So, all right. But now we're going to dive into the power session portion, okay? And this is where I take time through the principles and practices and processes that we teach as habit finder coaches, going all the way upstream to 19 years, hundreds of thousands of hours, millions of dollars invested into what will actually shift, create awareness, and increase the value of our habits of thinking. And I'm going to be distilling and concentrating, creating concise pieces that I feel will serve you based on what I'm experiencing from my one-on-one clients, from the groups that I coach, from the people that I speak to at different events. I'm going to be gathering all that to deliver something that I feel, if you spend the time on here with me on Tuesday, will move you forward personally, professionally, in your relationships, in your health, in your finances. Because the great part about focusing on habits of thinking is they determine all of that, okay? They determine the opportunity, they determine your results. And before that, the decisions you make. Before that, the emotions you feel and the actions that you take. And that's for everything, for every area of your life, which for most people is going to be in their mindset. And we'll challenge some things people have understood about mindset in these power sessions. You can just ask the people that have been on here with me for a little while. Stab my finger, sorry. You can just ask the people that have been on here with me for a little while if I have a tendency to be a little against the grain in terms of what's typically taught out there. And how to be able to think about it differently. Because most of what's being taught is behavior to emotion to thoughts and who we are becoming versus having the patience and the persistence, the PPs, the patience and the persistence to go the other direction. Because then it can be more stimulating to focus on the behavior first, on the doing. We're a microwave society, okay? We want things now. We want things fast. We want to make an impact as quick as we can. So why not focus on what we can do? What we can do is tangible. I want to pick up these glasses. So I picked up these glasses. I don't wear glasses. These just block the blue light of my screen when I'm sitting here writing and spending too much time in front of my computer working. So, but that was fulfilling. It's way easier than having to focus on our unconscious mind and the principle-based foundation of our lives. I mean, you talk about Og Mandino, who we're the official Og Mandino company, the Habit Finder Institute, because we're carrying Og Mandino's legacy forward because it's so affirmational to what we do and what we measure and so critical to what we've created. But Og said in scroll 1, okay, he said that the key to going all the way upstream to focusing on thinking habits and these principles that we're going to be teaching, that we're going to be working on, is to prevent failure. Okay. Rosanna just said, we aren't here for typical. Bring it. Yes, that's what I'm talking about right there. Okay. So it's to prevent failure, which isn't all that sexy. That's not, you couldn't sell preventing failure on a late night infomercial and do very well. Okay. So, but that's the reality of real growth, is that it may not feel initially as the sexiest thing on earth. Like how many of us have wanted to get in better shape and we keep being told we'll eat better and exercise. And okay, other than that, okay, and we turn into an other than that society. So other than reading and studying, how do I learn more? Other than exercising and eating right, how do I get in better shape? Other than focusing on my thinking habits and creating new habits tirelessly, persistently, and patiently, how do I grow and create more success in my life? let's make a commitment on these power sessions to not turn into an other than kind of person, where the obvious stuff seems to be the most boring because it doesn't immediately pick something up. It doesn't immediately turn around, okay? Because a lot of us are looking for an immediate turnaround. And yes, there are some things about the way you think that could make a huge impact immediately. I don't want anyone here to be successful slowly, okay? You got a lot of gurus who will jump on here and say, if you're here for get rich quick, you're in the wrong place. Well, actually, if you're here for get rich quick, you are in the right place, because I don't want you here for get rich slow, okay? And when I say get rich, I'm talking about money. I'm talking about material things. I am also talking about philanthropy. I'm talking about purpose and passion. I'm talking about a marriage and a harmony between all these things that is present in every major influence and positive role model in this world that have made a huge impact. Even Mother Teresa, which talk about constantly, because people are like, well, it's not about the money, or it's not about this. Well, guess what? Mother Teresa was all about the money. She was all about the bling bling. But seriously, she was. She raised $110 million to do what she did. If she hadn't, we never would have heard of her, ever. When she got in front of the UN and other major companies and stuff, she didn't hold back. She was so clear, so focused on getting the money. No apologies. Unapologetically focused on living her purpose and her passion out loud by getting money. I see too many people chasing their passion and their purpose and trying to suspend it for money, even though in the back of their head, they're really hoping to do their passion and purpose enough so they don't have to worry about money anymore. It's called financial freedom, and it's a trap. And I'm getting dangerously close to a bunch of people chatting in tabs, because I'm starting to go on some tangents. So I'm gonna safe word myself and say tabs. Let's get to what I felt impressed to share with you all today. Okay. As I thought, yes, money is neutral. I hear that too. Well, yeah, it's neutral until you engage it. Then it becomes good or bad. So it's neutral in and of itself. Then you engage it. It's going to magnify you. Okay. Now, getting to the topic at hand. Of all the things that I wanted to think about in terms of building blocks, because I want this to build. I want your time on these power sessions to be incremental, to be progressive, to be as simple as I can possibly make them. Okay. And I'll do my best to not go too crazy with etymology and the meaning of words and all kinds of stuff. That's something I love. But again, I want to keep this really simple. So here's what I felt really impressed to share today on our inaugural, whatever it is, kickoff to power sessions being live on Facebook. And that is what I felt could be one of the most important skills, habits for you to start focusing on in 2019, for you to get to January 2020 and go, wow, I knew 2019 was going to be good. I didn't know it was going to be that good. That's awesome. That's the stuff. That's what I felt impressed to talk with you about today. Okay. And here's the big reveal. Here's what I felt really impressed over the last several weeks thinking about this session. Really wanting to follow my intuition based on the audience, based on our Habit Finder Academy members and what we've been talking about, that I feel will serve you the best right now. Early in 2019, we're just a day over a week in to this year. Okay. And I saw one of my good friends and clients posted, I think on January 1st, oh, messed up. Okay. 2020 is going to be my year, or something like that. Super hilarious, but not too far from the truth for a lot of us. Here's what I feel will make the biggest impact for you. And it is learning how to have better conversations with you. Don't worry, I'll explain. And as in true academic format and popular information delivery systems, I have a numbered list just to keep it simple. That's more to keep me on track than anything. Okay. But it is the 5 steps, because there are 5 of them, to having better conversations with yourself. Now, I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, but it is a critical piece. The quality of the conversations you have with yourself will dictate the quality of your life and your growth. period. Now, there are some people in sales and recruiting companies and positions, networking type of things, where the conversation they have with other people is super important, but that's still behavioral. Okay. And we'll talk about behavioral. I'm not allergic to what you should do. We want to make sure we're coming from a place of who you are being and who you are becoming. And that has to do with the quality of your conversations with yourself. Now, if you're sitting there going, what conversations with myself? Those ones, just how you just thought that, or you were just thinking, wow, this guy's crazy. Like any of those thoughts, those are conversations you're having with you, between you and your thoughts. Now, fortunately, we have this beautiful little buffer called metacognition. Okay. Imagine this veil here of metacognition that separates me, who I really am, or you in this case, and my thoughts. I can hear my thoughts. I can observe my thoughts. I can be impacted by my thoughts, but they're not me. And so the conversation I'm talking about is between you, the discovery of more of you, and I'll explain that in a second, and your thoughts. This three-way conversation going on of who you currently are, who you're becoming, and your thoughts. Now, guess who your thoughts are incredibly biased and attached to? Do you think your thoughts are biased and attached to who you're becoming or who you currently are? And who you currently are is, for a lot of entrepreneurs, over 80% of them, confidently over 75%, but I'm pretty sure it's over 80%, don't like a lot of things about who they currently are in terms of their circumstances and their income and their relationships and other things. Okay, so we've got our thoughts that are incredibly biased, okay, to who we currently are. And yet who we currently are is exactly who's going to discover more of who we want to become. Because guess what? If you have a mirror right now, okay, my phone's shut off so I can kind of use it like a mirror. I want you to look at you. Look at your hands. Look at your feet. Look at you. This is the you that is going to create all of the dreams you've got for 2019. This is you. This neurology, this brain up here, you already have everything you need to succeed. There isn't some radioactive spider that's going to bite you, that's going to suddenly allow you to create all of your goals and all of your dreams. Okay? There isn't some planet you're going to be reborn on with superhuman powers. No, you're you. And the beautiful fact is that you are the one who will create your success. And it will start, as I feel impressed to share today, by getting better at this conversation between you, who you're becoming, which is you, but it's increasing that awareness. So we'll represent it as something separate just for the sake of this representation, okay, this example, and your thoughts. What kind of conversations are happening here? Well, here's the 5 steps to having better conversations, more productive, more growth-oriented conversations between these 3 forces. Because remember, if you're having a conversation with someone who likes your spouse way better, or your friend way better, or doesn't like you, that's going to be a tougher conversation. So that's going to be the person you're becoming having conversations with your thoughts. Because remember, your thoughts are super biased to who? Your thoughts are super biased to who you currently are. Because your thoughts want you to be predictable. They want you to be stuck. That's what we feel, but your brain's like, oh, we're just keeping us safe. Yeah, that's what we want to do. Our lower brain, our amygdala, it's all wired to keep us safe. But that means predictable, which means our thoughts are heavily biased to keeping us who we currently are. But we're not here because we want to stay who we currently are. We want to become more of who we are. Not become someone different. That's not how this works. We become more of who we already are. We unlock, we reveal, we set free, we surrender, and we become more. We become more. Not just by doing things differently, but to understanding these conversations. The first step to this conversation is to notice. How well have you been noticing this conversation? Have you noticed what your thoughts say to you and what your thoughts say to who you're becoming? And here's the step a lot of people miss, and who you're becoming is saying to who you currently are. If who you're becoming, listen closely. If you hear nothing else today, this could be it. If who you're becoming builds a better relationship and better dialogue and better conversation and stronger influence with who you currently are than your thoughts do with who you currently are, you will win. I'll say that again. If who you're becoming creates stronger dialogue and a better relationship with who you currently are than your current thoughts have with who you currently are, you will win. And the first step is to noticing these conversations. Are you even talking to who you want to become? Or are you asking them to wait upstairs while you figure this crap out? Because you want who you're becoming to help. You want them involved in the conversation. Because if it's just who you currently are versus your thoughts, that's a tough battle. That lacks vision, lacks inspiration, because that stuff comes from who you're becoming. Inspiration and passion, a willingness to suffer for things that we love, those things come from who we're becoming. If we're just asking who we're becoming to wait in the closet while we battle it out with our current thoughts, or wait outside while we wait for someone to come in and save us, and a number of other examples and scenarios I could lay out, we will lose. So first step, notice. Step one, notice this conversation. Notice whether you're even having a conversation with who you're becoming. And the greatest ways to have those conversations is to be able to listen to your own thoughts, to find moments away from noise, definitely away from a screen. I love that you're here in front of my screen right now, but the best place to notice these conversations is not when you're doing things and when you're in front of a screen or whatever the case is. And that's really important to make sure you have that time unplugged. Oh, I can't stand that, Paul. I have ADD. Well, welcome to entrepreneurship. Okay. I'm pretty sure we are like the international coalition of ADD as entrepreneurs. But just because you don't do it well doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. That's usually an indicator that you should lean into that side. Okay. Melinda said, and how do you decide who you want to become? Great question. Great question. There's a couple of different things you can do. One is consider what you want to have. Now, I talked about what we want to have, okay? And then most people jump into what they should do to get it, and that's usually short-lived. But if we can start to consider what we want to have, and there's two sides to this, Melinda, and anybody else. What we want to have usually involves things that we think that we want, but we've been programmed that we're supposed to want those things. Like to give back, like, oh, I want to give back, or I want to be able to help people. And yet we really take for granted whether we've really invested ourselves in this triangular conversation into that, or were we just kind of influenced and programmed growing up that we should give back, that we should help people. I'm not saying you're insincere. I'm just saying on a deep level upstream in your habits of thinking, it hasn't connected. Emotionally, you connect with it, but that's part of your programming. Behavioral, you're connecting with it because you do service or you do this or you do that, but has it reached that deep? So if we're going to do that, let's consider what we want to have, and let's consider what do we want to have that most people would consider noble, admirable, philanthropic, very purpose-driven, okay? And what do we want to have that we're not giving ourselves permission about? Both involve programming. Okay. There might be things we want to have that are really good, but we've been programmed that we're just supposed to do those things. And so we never really find traction in that. We don't change the good things we want to have just because we've been programmed, but we want to remove the programming. So there's more clarity in how to get there. Just like if we're not giving ourselves permission to want something we've been taught we shouldn't, like you shouldn't want a big house, you shouldn't want a nice car, you shouldn't want to be able to travel the world or whatever. We want to remove that programming because there's nothing wrong with that stuff either. So Melinda, to simplify, tabs, okay, figure out what you want to have and then define the attributes of who you will want to become that would create those things as a natural result. That's where I would start. But also understand that considering what you want to have is not a contract on your life. I want to have a business at this level that makes this much money, but that doesn't mean that's what you're going to do the rest of your life. Too many people are considering, what am I going to do with the rest of your life, rather than doing what you should. And that's what's the next thing you're going to do with your life. And I don't mean like next, here's another thing, and here's another thing, and here's another thing. That was for you, Melinda. Okay. But really focusing on the concrete things we want to have, the principles of what we want to experience and what we want to have. Okay. And then let's figure out who we will want to become, that becomes a natural outcome. And then we can move into some of the other steps. Then we can move into what we need. Okay. So now that we've started to figure out about who let me unlock my notes here. Okay. We're getting curious about this conversation. Okay. We're getting in touch with who we want to become. And it also doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be super simple. I want to become someone who wakes up at 5 a.m. every day. Or I want to become someone who journals every day. Or I want to become someone who has some good jokes in their back pocket all the time. It doesn't have to be, I want to become, the top influencer in the world and make $50 million a year and give back to these causes and these charities. It can be really simple. And some of us need to start really simple, because just like figuring out what our purpose and passion is like a contract on the rest of our life, when really it's not what are you going to do with the rest of your life, it's what's the next thing you're going to do with your life, because that's usually what leads to the next thing, to the next thing. And then as Steve Jobs says, we connect the dots in retrospect for the purpose of our lives. The miracles, the purpose, the passion, the drive, those are usually dots that are connected in retrospect when we reflect back, because we were focused on, rather than needing to figure it out, we surrendered to not needing to figure out, and we just started doing, and we started seeking inspiration, and we started becoming, and we started focusing on how we show up. We, us, who we're becoming, and our thoughts. We started noticing and being more curious about that conversation. That's number one. Number two, bring humanity to this conversation. One of the greatest weapons your thoughts will use against who you currently are to keep you here and to alienate who you're becoming. One of the greatest weapons your thoughts over here will use to alienate who you are becoming and keep you stuck with who you are, okay, who you currently are, is expectations. Expectations are these concrete ideas of how things are supposed to play out. And just like fear, they come in multiple levels and innumerable packages. As soon as we think we've gotten a grip on our expectations, if we feel at all like we're emotionally going up and down, behaviorally up and down, we're not feeling like we're making incremental and sustainable progress in our lives, we feel amazing one day, feel crappy the next day. That's humanity, but we agitate that. We make it far worse, okay, when expectations are at play. Expectations rob us of our joy. They rob us of our connection. They rob us of step one of being curious and noticing this conversation. Expectations take over the conversation and dictate our happiness and our fulfillment, and usually rob us of it and have us leading a life where we're tolerating reality, but we're really living up here in our minds, because it's a lot easier to escape up here. Okay. So I think there was another question now that I think about it. Oh, nope, just comments. Okay. Yes, John. John said writing helps me process. That's one of the greatest ways to become more aware of this conversation. Journaling is about bringing those 80,000, 90,000 conscious thoughts a day, and even some of those few million unconscious thoughts a day to the surface. It's a powerful way in terms of processing that. So Rosanna said, who I want to become can feel overwhelming or scary. How do I give myself permission? And then you kind of answer your own question. I guess bravery exists out of conquering the fear. Now, fear, really quick, because I want to make sure I get through these next couple of steps. But Rosanna, and for anyone else, fear is false evidence appearing real. False evidence is the pretense. That's the foundation to the definition of fear. It doesn't exist. Okay. And so if I'm afraid of who I want to become, I know immediately that is false evidence, that there is something my thoughts are creating that is resulting in fear in who I currently am to alienate and disconnect me from who I can become. That's why I said your relationship and conversation with who you want to become needs to be louder and more productive and better dialogue, more frequent dialogue than you have with your thoughts. Because otherwise the fear wins. Because remember, your thoughts are way more biased to who you currently are. And fear, just like expectations, are one of the things that it uses to keep you where you're at, keep you stagnant. Okay. So remember, number one is be curious about this conversation, notice it. Number two is to bring humanity into it. Understand that we are human. We're not going to be perfect. Too often we learn about these great systems or these great ideas or these amazing tools, and we can see ourselves just immediately trajectory launching into a whole new level of life. It doesn't work that way. Okay. Sorry, love that. Jill said sometimes the tabs are better than your intended content. Thank you. I appreciate that. But anyways, so bring humanity to that. Because if we ever get stuck in one of the personal development traps of it's the same trap we run into on the golf course when we hit that amazing shot and we immediately think to ourselves, why can't I do that every time? And then that immediately ruins the next shot we screw up or the next several holes, but then we rationalize and just, well, it's better than being at work or whatever. It's very similar to that. We have this amazing shot, this amazing experience, and our brain immediately wants to say, well, then just do that every time, because it knows we're not going to be able to. And as soon as we don't, we're going to be discouraged from those expectations, the lack of humanity we gave ourselves. Because what we're doing here, what we're doing right now, and what we hope to do all 2019 is not to reach some level of existence that will be constant. We want to reach some level of existence that will be consistent. Meaning we're not planning to stay at our best all the time. Og said that only a worm is free from stumbling. And I am not a worm, he went on to say. Okay? Well, we're not worms either. We're not free from stumbling. So consistent is not constant. It's not about getting to this level of existence, this level of performance, and staying there 24/7, 365. Now I'm a success. No, that's a great way to set yourself up for a big, hard, painful fall. Okay. And so what we'll want to do is we'll want to be more focused on getting back there. Resilient, springing back forth, being resilient, getting back there and learning how to stay there a little bit longer. Just like when you wanted to run a marathon, you started jogging the first couple of times, you couldn't make it very far. But then you jogged again. And you focused on the frequency, and you focused on your cardiovascular health, and then you focused on your nutrition. And suddenly all these things started supporting you. But still to this day, you can't jog 24/7, 365. They're consistent, but you don't run constantly. It's the same thing with our existence. Okay. I want to make sure I'm not missing any questions here. So give me just 1 second. Great comments. I hope you guys are reading these. This is awesome. Don't worry, Della. There will be whiteboard drawings. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this through Zoom on Facebook Live, so that if I'll share this screen right here, and I'll draw right here on my. Oh, well, I don't do whiteboards anymore, Della, but I do a digital whiteboard on my iPad Pro. I'll connect it to my computer, share my screen. You guys would see it on here. I'll definitely still do that because I like visuals as much as anybody. So I'll have to rewatch. I can't write fast enough. Okay. So you can also say tabs. Okay. All right. Journaling is hard. Dana, go find my Facebook Live on my personal page. I think it was October. If any of you know, get in touch with Dana and let her know. I did a Facebook Live on one of my What's the Point Wednesdays on journaling. And it'll talk a lot about people that have a hard time with journaling, and I've helped a lot of people shift their mentality and be able to adopt that habit in a really deep way. So awesome. It would be great to have your written notes. That's it. That's all there is. Marilyn, they're bullet points. That's sorry. Charlene, finally after 50 minutes, I see. Oh, sorry. Sounds like there's some issues with the connection. And Joel asking if this is replayed another time. Yes, that's another benefit to doing Facebook Live. I'm going to post it right to the Habit Finder page, and you can go back and watch it anytime. Okay. Now we're coming up on the hour, and not every one of these will be an hour long, but this is our first one. So, what the heck? Let's keep driving. So number 3, we've got 3 more to get through. We're noticing, we're being curious about this conversation with ourselves, which is who we currently are, who we're becoming, and our thoughts. Number 2 is we're bringing humanity into this conversation so that expectations, fear, and other things don't totally disable our progress. Number 3 is we're going to ask questions to seek inspiration. Now, some of the greatest things that we can do when we're starting to listen to this conversation is ask questions about it. One of the strongest parts of your brain, the amygdala, the lower brain, it has some of the greatest influence on your emotional state, and eventually that trickles into your behavior in a really strong way. But one thing it doesn't have is it doesn't have language. So if you got to start observing and become aware of this conversation. Make sure you're aware of all 3 players in this conversation and the role that they play. But then what we want to do is we want to start asking questions. Okay. Like, for example, Rosanna, you talked about being afraid of who you could become, or maybe it was Jill, sorry. Afraid of who you could become or who you wanted to become. And so many people miss the simple opportunity to just go, why am I afraid of who I'll become? See, because this false evidence appearing real needs to just be a feeling. It needs to just be woof. Okay? It's a very technical term. Woof. Okay? I won't try and spell it for you. But it needs to just be a feeling, because as soon as we start to analyze it, as soon as we ask about it, because it doesn't have language, it loses its power. Now, that doesn't mean some of the chemical reactions going on in your body from the fear instantly go away, but now it's a fair fight. Why am I afraid of who I'll become? Oftentimes you're going to go, I really shouldn't be. I'm actually excited. And just like right now, right in front of you in this moment, I'm having a conversation out loud with myself about myself in front of you. Don't be afraid to do that. Have some caution around, if you're standing on a subway and having a conversation out loud with yourself, or, being like Ben Stiller in Heavyweights, which is still my favorite Ben Stiller role ever, where he's like, how you doing, Tony? Bad. Why do you feel bad? Because things aren't working out. Okay, what can we do? And like, while the kids are all standing behind him and you're like, So I'm not saying go, leave some question marks around your sanity around people, but we should be creating plenty of private moments where we can observe this and have the conversation. And when it's really tough or when it's really important, you want to make sure you're having the conversation out loud. Okay? Because that's one thing that Tony Perkis did do really well in Heavyweights is he talked to himself out loud, which he no doubtedly learned in cognitive behavioral therapy to be able to shift his emotional state and process things emotionally. So as crazy as he was, it's a really powerful principle. Journaling is the other really powerful one for the questions we want to ask. Because when we ask those questions, we'll get inspired. And when we're inspired, it will lead us to number 4, which is to take what we've noticed, what we've been curious about, what the humanity we've brought into this equation, this conversation with ourselves, and will allow us to then make decisions. I'm afraid of who I'm going to become. Why am I really afraid of who I become? I guess I really shouldn't be afraid, even though I feel it. I shouldn't be. So I'm going to be brave. I'm going to be courageous. And now I can make a decision separate from this fear on who I'm going to become. And so the decision that we'll make, and we've done webinars, and I'll talk more about decisions in future power sessions, but we decide, we cut off the excuses. We cut off the fear. Again, doesn't mean we don't have the feelings, the chemical reactions from our thoughts and other psychological influences, but we no longer have an escape route. We no longer have a back door. We have made a decision. We have decided who we are becoming. And that should be one little step at a time. And that should be, if you're not really good at it, 1 week at a time, then go 30 days, then go 90 days, then go 6 months. I would never go more than about 6 months. A year is pushing it, but 3 to 6 months is a really good place to focus on a timeline for deciding who you will become. By April 30th, 2019, I will be blank. And that's not, I will do this, it's I will be. April 30th, 2019, my business will be. Because decisions are not actions. We'll talk more about that another time. Okay? But focus on deciding, decision, and cutting off from the excuses. And then the fifth key to this conversation with yourself is to take action. And then cycle it all over again. As you're taking action, notice what this conversation is doing. Bring your humanity and expectation control to this conversation. Ask questions to seek inspiration, make new decisions, and then take more action. This should be a cyclical, ongoing, consistent experience. Those are the keys to having great conversations with you. Okay? Totally, Marilyn. Question your fear out loud. Watched you do that in incredible ways in 2018. Nikki said, I struggle with making decisions, fear of making the wrong choice. Well, there's a great thing to notice, okay? Now, is fear of making the wrong choice coming from who you want to become, Nikki, or is it coming from your thoughts? Because you're who you currently are. You have the metacognition, the ability to experience who you want to become on a mental level that then allows you to make the decisions, take the actions to bring that person to reality, which is you. So it's got to be your thoughts. So if it's your thoughts, ask them, hey, thoughts, why are you trying to get me afraid of making the wrong choice? Because we can be focused on making the wrong choice, or we can be focused on making a choice and making it the right choice. So it's a little bit of a pocket knife response, Nikki, a little quick thing for this particular one. But anytime we're feeling fear or discomfort or something holding us back, exactly, it's our thoughts, it's our self-doubt. So now we get to separate our identity, Nikki, from those thoughts and self-doubt and ask it questions and journal about it. And then make decisions based on that conversation and take action that cuts off that influence determining what we're going to do. But with decisions, with choices specifically, I love what John Maxwell said. He said, there are no bad choices. There is just poor management of the choice is typically the most common offender in our lives. It's how we manage the choice, not the choice that we made. And afraid of making the wrong choice is like one of the best warm, fuzzy blanket excuses in the world. Because we can vividly play out these catastrophic scenarios of making these wrong choices. So we feel even more justified in not making any choice, which keeps us stuck at where we currently are and disconnects us from who we want to become. Okay? Yep, a little bit of a cliffhanger. Decisions are not actions. It's not, I'm deciding to go to the gym every day this week. That's an action. And the reason, Stacy knows this, but the reason that actions are not decisions is because actions can be renegotiated and relitigated every day. Every morning I wake up, I'm going to renegotiate with myself about that action. But if I've made a decision and the actions that support that decision are going to the gym every day, then I wake up in the morning, it doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter whether my kid came and throwing up in the middle of the night. I've made a decision, and so it's not on the menu. It's not an option to not go to the gym. Okay? But again, more on that another time. That would fill up hours and hours, not just 1 hour. So, okay. Thoughts, why do you create such confusion in my head when I work on how I am becoming? Oh, love that. So Marilyn's asking her thoughts that. Hey, thoughts, why do you create such confusion in my head when I work on how I am becoming? Confusion is confusion, unmet expectations, excuses, fear. Those are a few of your thoughts' favorite weapons for keeping you stuck, keeping you predictable. So when you feel confused, Understand that you think you don't know what you should do next. You think you don't know how to do something, but it's not true. I've talked to so many clients who are like, I'm so confused. I don't know how to grow my business. That's funny because your business has grown in the past. What's different now? The only thing that's different are your thoughts trying to use a weapon of confusion to get you to feel stuck. Like this is where you need to stay, and you need someone to tell you what to do, which is on the lowest end of the totem pole, to be able to break free. Okay. Yes, Barbara, this will be reposted on the Habit Finder page for you to rewatch anytime. Okay. We are at the top of the hour. I've got to jump on with a client. Super excited that we're doing these sessions on here. Please share this out. If this was helpful to you today, this was good information, please share this out, okay? On the Habit Finder Facebook page is where it'll be posted. So if you're watching this through my page, because I shared it on there, make sure you go to the Habit Finder page, facebook.com/the Habit Finder, and like the page, follow it. There's an event there for these sessions so you can get reminders and stuff. So, but please share this out. Let's make an impact on as many lives as we can in 2019. We know that if we do that, that as a company we'll be taken care of. And it's our opportunity to show you our belief in you and our belief in abundance. Honored to be here today. Honored to spend this much time with so many incredible people, and hope that we continue to drive this forward in focusing on our habits of thinking as far upstream as you can get, and bringing more awareness to our decisions and completely changing our actions and our results. Simple 3-step process that will make 2019 the year you hope it will be. Love you all. Have an awesome day. Bye.